My name is AJ, and I own a 1999 Honda Civic Si. I got into Hondas back in high school when a buddy of mine also had a Civic Si in blue, and since they were relatively new at the time, they were a little bit out of my reach being a high school student. So the want for one was always kind of there, and I knew maybe one time I'd circle back to it. And so it wasn't until, 2004-ish, 2005, when I moved down to California that I got a real look at what the California Honda scene was about. And so from there, that really kind of changed my perspective on cars. They weren't just lowered with kits or other real custom modifications that you can't undo anymore, but they had a real clean sense of style and subtle look to that I just really dug. And so when I was able to afford it, I purchased a 98 Integra GSR with a JDM front, ITR interior, JDM ITR swap, and this was back 05, 06-ish. Illegal smogs underneath the table because it wouldn't pass smog. Mainly keeping it garaged because of theft in California and the location of where I was. So in 1 year of ownership, I only ended up driving that car about 7,000 miles, which, what's the point of having a car like that if you're not able to enjoy it? So I ended up selling it, and I got my first SI. It was decently clean and needed some work, but overall, I took a trade plus cash for my JDM front GSR. And after I made the trade, I had buyer's remorse really badly. I thought, what am I doing? I should have just stuck with this car because I had planned to do so much with this car, despite not driving it as much. So 2 weeks before Christmas, 2007-ish, the car was stolen out while I was out Christmas shopping. Contacted insurance. Insurance said, if the motor's gone, we're just gonna total it out. Motor was gone, totaled it out. Ended up cashing out about $9,000 from insurance for that, which led me to purchase a car that I didn't think would get stolen as much, but was still a Honda. So I bought an S2000. It was an 01. Raw, really raw. Like the diff. Wow. Okay. The diff had the notorious clunking, but it was raw. It was fun to drive, but it wasn't practical. And so I wanted something that had a little more practicality to it, because the trunk on that car is just non-existent. Yeah, I had to wedge my golf clubs into the front seat because I couldn't fit them anywhere else. So at that time, I was leaving for the military, ended up selling the car, paid off the rest of the loan, left for the military, got to my first duty station, and was like, okay, my previous cars haven't had AC, but this was Pensacola, Florida. So the humidity was at an all-time high when I was used to a desert heat, which was dry. So I purchased a Civic hatchback, which was about 8 hours away from my duty station. So on my way back, I'm 2 to 3 hours in, Headed up the coast, and the timing belt snaps. I am stranded. I don't know where I am. I call a tow truck and have them take me to the closest Honda dealership. After extensive work and a couple $100s, they got the car running, but the head was toast, all the valves were burnt, and it would just smoke like a chimney. So, fearing that I wouldn't make it back in time to start work at my duty station, I limped it home all the way. Ended up having to call a buddy when I was 2 hours away because the car quit, and that was it. It was done. So the motor was just toast. Found a local mechanic in Pensacola who was, cheaper than shops, because here I am, a fresh guy to my first duty station, not making a lot of money. I needed to fix this so I could get back and forth to work. So this guy really helped me out. Ended up putting another B16 in there, kept the Type R trans, kept a few other things, and got it running for the most part for 2 months. Then, as I was driving to work, the post mount failed, the motor dropped onto the street, cracking the oil pan, spilling oil everywhere. I immediately shut the car off, and at this point I was getting back to, I was getting to my next duty station. So I had to, not wanting to carry a lot of stuff, I sold off a lot of stuff. I kept the motor and trans. I kept, which I had swapped out to a US spec ITR after that B16 had dropped out. Kept the 5-lug, kept the seats, kept a bunch of stuff, and basically sold the shell. Tossed what parts I had into a minivan and moved from Pensacola to 29 Palms, California, the desert. So before I moved, I realized the mistake of not having AC in any type of climate here anymore. So I wanted AC. I wanted my next car to be as close to OEM as possible without having everything torn out. So about 5 weeks out, I found a completely, not a completely stock, but it was slightly stock, all numbers matching, clean title, Honda Civic Si in blue. And I'm like, okay, this is it. So 5 weeks out, I keep emailing the guy. I email him back and forth about once to twice every week, just to make sure that the car hasn't sold. I wanted it that much. So as I'm moving across country to my next duty station, it took me 4 days to move from Pensacola to Las Vegas. At Las Vegas, I made a pit stop it was a Friday. So Friday morning, I drove from Las Vegas to California, met the seller at the rental car office, drove the car around, checked it all out, everything checked out good. So I ended up buying the car. It had some really terrible CE28 reps on it with some absolutely horrible tires, where road noise back to Las Vegas was just almost unbearable. It had buddy clutch suspension on it. It had Civic Type R headlights on it already. It had a carbon fiber hood, Civic Type R mirrors. It had a fair amount of stuff done to it, and I had kept a lot of that stuff from my Civic hatchback, so I ended up just swapping it straight in. I swapped the brides in, I swapped the Tacatas in, and a few other things. Got to my next duty station in the desert and realized that most of those parts are not beneficial to a climate such as the desert. Swapped the brides back out, converted it a lot back to stock, just so it was easier to get around while I was at my duty station. So fast forward to 2012, No, that 2012 was when I bought the car. Fast forward to 2015, I'm getting out of the military, and the car has a fair amount of mods done to it. At that time, I had 17-inch RSZRs. I had traded the stock cloth interior for dealer optional leather, including door panels and stuff. So it had leather in it. And I had sold off a bunch of other parts from the Civic hatch, which kind of funded a few of the parts to this car. So I get out of the military. I move back up to Seattle, 2015, and I immediately jump back into school. ITT Tech. That was probably, it wasn't a regret, but it was a great learning experience. I'm going for a year. I'm getting financial aid and benefits from my GI Bill, and I decided I want another project. So I said, at this time, I want to buy a Type R because they're going to skyrocket in value, and I know they're going to go up, and I want to get one now while I can get one, rather than get one later when the price is super high. So started buying all these parts for it before I even had the car, using financial aid and all these other benefits. Mistake. I'd rather have one completed car than two project cars, no matter how many cool parts they have on them. So ended up selling off all the parts I had acquired and dumping that money back into this car. During the disassembly of this car, I went in with the mindset that everybody else has, this isn't gonna happen to me. This will be, maybe a year, 6 months type of build. I'll just buy stuff as I go along, and everything will work and everything will be great. And that wasn't the way it worked out. As we were removing the head off the VIN matching motor to the car, a head stud snapped and left about 2 inches of thread inside the hole. And this was after I had already paid for $1,000 worth of machine work to the bottom end, and took it to the machine shop, asked him if he could get it out. He said yeah. He called me back and said, well, I looked at it, we've got one shot. If you want to do it, we can get it out. We can try and get it out. If it doesn't come out, then there's nothing we can do. So we tried it and it didn't work, and so now I have this block sitting in my garage with freshly machined pistons in it, micro polish crank, all these, reliability type modifications, because I never wanted to go too crazy with this motor, but you live and you learn. So I ended up buying another A2 block and head off the internet. Went to the guy's house at like 9 o'clock. Me and a buddy of mine, Uriel, who actually helped me put a lot of this car together, helped me check it out and make sure it was good. So I think we put the motor together. We didn't really do much to it because I just wanted the car to run. We put it all together, I want to say within a span of maybe 4 to 5 months total. Of course, it was spaced out between, a few more months than that. Altogether, it probably took maybe 6 to 7 months. But we got it all together and got it running. So my initial plan was to have this car make Weekfest maybe 2 years ago. But due to all these complications and time framing and other factors of life, it ended up being a few years after that. And I think I think the thing that I've learned the most is that you can't be prepared for what life is going to throw at you, but you can try to prep as much as possible. So with the car almost complete, I had paint and body work done between 2017, 2018. I was referred to Kansai Motorsports down in Burien by Jeff Diaz, and I walked in and I looked at the quality of work that was there and the type of vehicles that were there, and I knew that I would be happy with the outcome. So stripped a lot out of the engine bay as much as I could, ended up getting the engine bay fixed and painted. The reason it needed to be fixed was while I was still in the military. This is about 2013, 2014-ish. My mother lived in Vegas, and because I was in the military station kind of close, I could go and visit her. So the way to Vegas was the main highway or these back roads that cut through the mountain. So the night before I'm about to leave, it rains real quick. I don't think anything of it because I guess our portion of the desert didn't get hit as much, but it rained pretty quick and washed out a lot of these back roads. So Friday approaches, I don't end up getting off of work till late, like I want to say like 4, maybe 5 o'clock, and the sun's setting and going down. These back roads did not have lights, and it wasn't the best kept condition in the first place. So I'm trying to make my way, lights fading. I reach a rolling portion of the road. I come over the first hill, come back down, and the rain the night before had washed rocks and debris all across the road. It wasn't too much on this first dip, and I was like, okay, whoa, I better slow down. I start to crest the next hill, look down as my headlights come down, and there's a huge rock, maybe a tree trunk. There was probably, I don't know, an anchor, whatever you could think of was in the middle of this road, and smashed my bottom lip and the radiator support. I had just bought a brand new OEM lip 3 months earlier, and that was gone. The only thing that was left when I looked at it were the tabs to the lip still hanging off the bumper. Dented the oil pan, dented the header, but overall the car was still running, you know. I got off pretty lucky. It could have been a lot worse. So I limped it to Vegas, ran without an OEM lip for a while, and then started to build. I was pretty upset about that because the car was, you know, what I wanted: clean title, all matching VINs, AC, power steering, cruise control, everything that was there from the factory was there, and now I had kind of destroyed that. So after a while, I started buying stuff to fix it up. While I was still in the military, I bought what I could. It took me a long time because, you know, I wasn't really making a lot. In 2014, we get word that we're gonna do a UDP, which is a unit deployment program, deployment to Japan. Psyched. So we start prepping. I end up storing my car at a buddy's garage who was going on deployment with us, so I knew it was safe there. And over there is when I really started getting more into the real parts. First couple days over there, I bought a set of wheels, Advent RGs and 15s. Ended up sending those home. While I was there, I met I met a buddy who hooked me up with this website where I got in touch with a guy who could purchase parts off of Yahoo Japan. So started buying parts off of Yahoo Japan and sending them home. I figured I might as well get what I can while I'm here. I found a set of 15-inch spoon wheels, mint condition, super cheap. I bought the Recaros that are in this car. I bought the Takata harnesses that were in this car. I bought a lot of stuff off of there, and I figured I might as well get it now while I can get it for cheap instead of spending X amount more dollars before or when I get back. So, and this was way before like the actual Mugen hype started getting, you know, out of control, spoon hype, stuff like that. Bought what I could while I was there, shipped it all home. While I was there, somebody had sent me a link to an SS lip, and it was already painted. The guy was getting rid of it. He didn't want it. I had a buddy who was close to him. This was down in Florida while I was still in Japan. And he went and got it for me, shipped it to my house, and it was waiting for me back when I got back from Japan, which, you know, goes to show that the people that you meet while doing this are they're not just temporary people. They're people that become friends, and they're people that you can always have a memory of, no matter where you are. There's a lot of things like that, a lot of parts that I bought that I remember people. Am I in constant contact with them? No, it's life. Life happens. But do I remember the times that I had, or the times that I kicked it with this person? Yeah, and I hope that they remember those times too, because I don't regret anybody that I met. It's been fun. It's been a fun journey making this car to the point it has now, being, you know, in this position of telling my story to other people. And I hope that, you know, you may not relate to all of it, but there's maybe one thing that you'll relate to. And, you know, I hope that to the people that are looking to build their cars, that you don't always have to do what's in style or what's in fashion. Fashion comes back around. You know, when I was in high school, clear tails were the thing. Then they went out, and now they're back again. Not as much anymore, but, you know, things have a way of coming around. And so just because it's not popular now doesn't mean it's not going to be popular again later. And, you know, as far as real parts, I definitely find, you know, real parts to be of higher quality, obviously, than other brands and stuff. And I tried to build this car with quality in mind rather than hurry up, because I wanted to get it out there. I didn't want to get it out there for, you know, for any, you know, mainstream recognition or anything like that. I wanted to get it out there again because I missed driving it. It's fun. They're just fun to drive, and getting this car back on the road with parts that were exceeded or better than OEM quality gives me a peace of mind that I know I built something solid, and that I put together something that isn't gonna fall apart on me. I always like to kind of hedge my bets, I guess. Not really take the safe route, but plan in case of the worst. So I think that's where a lot of the time it took to build this car came from. I didn't want things to break, but at the same time, I knew if I didn't fix it or upgrade it while I was there, it was just gonna cost me more money down the road. It's like a chicken and the egg thing. Like, you don't wanna pay all this money right now to fix it, but if you don't pay it now, it's gonna cost you even more later. So, and that's what really drove me down a lot of rabbit holes, like with the subframe, the brakes, all different parts of the car. I wanted it to be solid for peace of mind. And I think I've done quite a good job with help. None of this was done alone. There were so many people that helped me, and these are the people that I like to hang out with, that share the same passion, and like to share similar interests. So I guess building a car is kind of like a causeway to friendships, because you never know who you're gonna meet while you're doing this, and some of them become really good friends. Yeah. Yeah.